Yo, what's going on? Facebuster Wrestling Podcast here to talk post-Backlash and some other tidbits and shenanigans that are brewing up. And Backlash was really fun to watch. I had a great time watching it. Kind of had a feeling it was going to play out this way, that it was going to be, as I referred to it, a babyface fest. The crowd was going to be hot, the energy was going to be high, and there was going to be a lot of fun spots and reason to be entertained by this event. And it was exactly that. As far as outcomes and predictions go, I was 5 out of 7, so not too bad. I pat myself on the back thusly. But great watch, fun show, and let's get into some of the results and talk about that. First up, the card was structured differently than I thought it would be, but I think they did right with starting with Bianca and Io Sky, because it really set the tone, and it was a great match. Whereas Rollins versus Omos later on was what it was. It wasn't exactly like a breakthrough performance by either of these guys, but it was a match. We'll get into it a little bit later, but Bianca and Io opening the show for the Raw Women's Championship. The weird thing about this was almost instantly the crowd in Puerto Rico quite clearly favored Io Sky over Bianca Belair. And I was not expecting that. In fact, that really came out of left field for me. I sort of speculated later on to myself, maybe the crowd knows that Io Sky grew up idolizing Rey Mysterio. She's vocalized that in the past. Perhaps that was something that was on their radar. I don't know, but Io's also been very hot lately. She's had a lot of momentum, and as was mentioned on the show by, I believe, Corey Graves, either during this matchup or just after this matchup, he said that this is the Io Sky that we've been waiting for, and I couldn't agree more. Not just this show. It's been like this for the past month or so, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, but Io Sky has really been the competitor that I remember her being on NXT when she was the top of the women's division down there, and she had an incredible run with the NXT Women's Championship. She really established herself in NXT as somebody who's eventually going to come up to the main roster and be featured prominently. But once she was called up, it kind of sputtered and failed to launch a little bit. I was excited, like most people, about Damage Control when they were first organized. It marked the returns of Io Sky, or Io Shirai, and Dakota Kai. And I thought it was something new and fresh, which it was. It was new and fresh. I was thinking and hoping that it would be something that would elevate Io and Dakota Kai immediately, being paired with Bayley and put into that faction. But it didn't. The excitement didn't last long. It proved to be a bit of a failure. But I've been very happy to see Io Sky in recent times showcase who she was and who she truly is. So, yeah, the crowd was very behind Io, and they were not so behind Bianca. To both of their credit, they both played into it very well. Io was quick to sort of step into the babyface role, and Bianca was very quick to step into the role of heel. She was doing some dismissive hand gestures to the crowd, sort of almost giving a side eye when they started chanting to Io Sky. I like that. It shows the diversity of both of these competitors. And of course, Bianca played the heel role well. She's no stranger to it. As we all know, she started in NXT as a heel. She was very arrogant, overly confident, full of herself. And I think she channeled that character here in this match. I'm not sure either of these two expected this sort of reaction, but they showed that they were able to adapt very quickly, and that was impressive for me. Great opening match, great match overall. Bianca at one point did this one-arm military press on Io Sky as she sort of was fanning her face with the other hand, very heelish. Looked very impressive, but it could have turned out very bad. And that move did not exactly land correctly. Io sort of took a face plant off of that one. Io ate some canvas off of that one, but she ended up being okay. But Bianca retained, And it was due in most part to Damage Control coming out and getting involved and being a little overzealous and, in fact, hurting Io Sky in their efforts to help her. Bayley ends up grabbing onto Bianca Belair's braid and trying to hold her down for Io to do a moonsault. And the ref saw it. That caused a distraction, and that enabled Bianca to take advantage of it and pin Io for the win. I also predicted that at this point, Io would walk out on Damage Control after a confrontation, and that would kind of spell the demise for Damage Control. I think they're saving that for later. I think that's still the direction that they're heading in. But Io instead just sort of ends up sitting on the ground outside the ring with her face in her hands as Bayley and Dakota Kai are like, oh, shit. We fucked that up. I hope we don't get our asses kicked. But Bianca retains the Raw Women's Championship. Next up, we had Seth Rollins versus Omos in the nonsensical match of the night. The match that was hastily thrown together to get both of these competitors on the card. Omos for the freak factor, Rollins because he is one of the biggest faces in wrestling at the moment. Essentially turned out how I had predicted. Rollins takes it and wins, even though he's physically not supposed to beat somebody that size, and we all know that. That's logical thinking, but Rollins ends up getting the upper hand, doing like 3 stomps on Omos, ends up with a final one from the top rope, which finally takes down the big man, and Rollins wins. Omos, before the match, takes advantage of Rollins soaking in the serenading from the crowd of his song and attacks him, but in the end, it is for naught, and Omos takes another L, thus continuing his streak of being unable to take out any sort of elevated competition. At some point, they got to give this guy a victory over a upper tier superstar. I don't know who, I don't know when, but the guy's really starting to look a little shitty as a result. But nonetheless, next up, Austin Theory versus Bronson Reed versus Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship. Very quick match, a lot faster than I expected this to be. Theory retains after taking advantage of Lashley spearing Reed. Not exactly the way that I played it out in my head. I thought there would be more time for Bronson Reed and Lashley to sort of be distracted by each other and the recent rivalry, and they'd sort of go after each other for a prolonged period of time, and Austin Theory would sit back and wait for the storm to settle and pin one of them as a result. Austin Theory just sort of quickly takes advantage of the spear by Lashley on Bronson Reed, throws Lashley out post-spear, and pins Bronson Reed as he is prone after Bobby Lashley's spear on him. Decent match, but again, it was a little quick. I would have preferred something longer for this match, but they got this match out of the way quickly. Yeah, Theory retains. Next up, Rhea Ripley versus Zelina Vega for the SmackDown Women's Championship. To start, Rhea actually gets a really good reaction as she makes her entrance, but she does a very good job of healing it up immediately, just to get the favor off of her and have all the positive steam go to Zelina Vega, which is very professional. It was good of Rhea to notice that and sort of wipe out any sort of positive reaction she was getting. Let's be real, Rhea is totally over with the crowd wherever she goes, even in this case where she's fighting Zelina Vega in Puerto Rico. She was very quick to squash that and essentially enforce that she is the bad woman in this situation. So good on Rhea for doing that. Great pop for Zelina Vega. Zelina's very emotional. At one point, Zelina goes over to her mom early in the match and grabs a chancla, much to the delight of the Puerto Rican crowd. Not as short as the Theory Reed Lashley matchup, but shorter than I thought it would be. I thought they would give more hope spots to Zelina, but this was very quick, and Rhea seemed to dominate Zelina for most of the match. I was expecting more of a fight out of Zelina, more of a scrappy, I'm not going to give up sort of situation, but really maybe 1-2 hope spots for her at max, and Rhea just takes her out very quickly. But Rhea retains her SmackDown Women's Championship. And after the match, the crowd gives a fantastic reaction for Zelina Vega, who is again very emotional. And I got to say, I felt very happy for Zelina Vega getting this opportunity. Clearly meant a lot to her. I did not know the entire backstory from Zelina Vega. How I guess her father passed away in the 9/11 attacks. I had never heard that before, and yeah, I never knew that about her backstory. But the story about her, I believe, uncle. I could be wrong. Her uncle or something at one point fought Bruno Sammartino, and Bruno broke his nose, and he never fought again after that. Just really great job by Cole and Graves giving the backstory for Zelina, really painting a picture for why this match, not only because she's of Puerto Rican heritage, but just the painting a proper undersized underdog babyface background story. But just thinking back to her in NXT, how she started with Andrade, they were really good together. She was a great heel manager, and then coming up to the main roster, and it didn't quite work out. I mean, we all know she's got an extensive history in wrestling. She's been around for a while, so this is nothing new to her. She's not like a fresh NXT homegrown talent. Just the way she was brought to the main roster and let go because of her, she vocalized support for unionization and the whole Twitch channel thing and not being able to stream and just that whole thing and being let go and brought back. It's easy to root for Zelina knowing her whole story. I'm glad they gave her this opportunity, and it clearly meant a lot to her, so that was really fun to watch. Next up, kind of surprising, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest. I thought this would be the second to last match on this card or the main event. Turns out it was neither. It was third to last, which, well, we'll get to it later, but I feel like the main event was slightly anticlimactic, but this, I believe, should have been the main event, especially there in Puerto Rico. I think it made more sense for it to be. I think the last three matches should have gone Bloodline versus Zayn, Owens, and Riddle, and then Cody versus Brock, and then Bunny versus Priest to end the night. I think that would make the most sense. Hell, the way that it played out, Cody versus Brock should have been third to last, and then the Bloodline Zayn, Owens, Riddle match, and then Bunny versus Priest to end things. Should have been the main event, hands down. And I think that played into the dip in energy. Look, the crowd was hot for most of the night, but after the Bad Bunny and Priest match, the crowd seemed a little spent. The energy dipped. They were still a hot crowd, but it just seemed to be turned down a notch. And I think the Bad Bunny Priest match sort of exhausted their energy and used up all their battery and their juice, so to speak. So the structure of this card left a little to be desired. Still, this was a very fun match, and I continue to be impressed with Bad Bunny and the way that he's taken to professional wrestling. I know he's grown up a fan, but I'm sure it takes a lot more than just being a lifelong fan to step into the ring and train properly and to be able to train to the point where you can execute some of the things that he's doing in the ring properly. For a kind of skinny, spindly dude, he showed a lot of power. This guy is something else in the ring. I don't know about the music. I know the Booker T song and stuff like that, but Bad Bunny's music doesn't exactly fall into my wheelhouse musically, which is not a problem. I mean, the shit's catchy, I'll admit that. Last night I could not sleep because I had that Booker T song stuck in my head, and it was not fun. It was terrifying. It wasn't a good time. Not a bad song, I'm not shitting on it, but I've heard it so much over the build-up to Backlash that I couldn't get it out of my head, and I slept, I think, like an hour and a half because of it. But Bunny versus Priest, great match. Bunny is a fucking beast in the ring somehow. For not a guy you would expect to be pulling off Michinoku drivers on a guy like Damian Priest, let alone two of them. dude's got some great moves in his repertoire for a non-wrestler. The Michinoku drivers, the Canadian Destroyer or the Bunny Destroyer. Dude executed like a perfect figure four. Sliced bread, numero dos, as they refer to it. The guy has trained his ass off, clearly. And that's just, it was fun to see Damian Priest being thrown around a little bit by somebody who should have no business doing that to such a large individual. But Bad Bunny finds a way, gets a little help, he wins this match. I did not expect Carlito and Savio Vega. Savio Vega I have not seen in a long time. Very fun nostalgia spot for me. But seeing both of them was cool. Carlito looks like a dude that should be signed to their active roster right now. Judgment Day, as we all expected, I think, came out to try to assist Damian Priest, only for Ray to come out, followed by Carlito and Savio and the LWO to assist. Damian Priest did a real great job selling that leg injury when he was taken, when Bunny was wrapping his injured leg around the post and put on the figure four. Great job. The hopping around on one leg when he was trying to pull off some offense. With a little help from his friends, Bad Bunny gets the win. So next up, Bloodline versus Zayn, Owens, and Riddle. Bloodline wins this. I predicted Zayn and Owens and Riddle to pull this out. Bloodline comes through. They were clearly portraying some issues between Jay and Solo, which we've touched on in the prediction show and previous episodes, and even teased an altercation between the two as they got a little physical with each other. Jay slaps Solo on the chest to tag in. We even saw, as Corey Graves pointed out, a very rare miscommunication within the Usos, as I believe... I forget who hit who, but one of the Usos accidentally nailed the other Us with a super kick. I don't remember the last time I saw something like that from the Usos, where there was such a miscommunication where they ended up accidentally contacting each other physically like that. But they still continue to tease this crumbling of the bloodline. Things are starting to fall apart. It's getting tense, and they're starting to almost seemingly be an inch away from turning on each other. But they still get the win. The Roman Reigns disappointment isn't going to be as fierce. However, he could still be angry that it was clear that these guys are not playing nice with each other. There's something boiling underneath the surface between the brothers. We'll see how Roman Reigns reacts to it when he's on TV next, which I believe is on SmackDown. But the Bloodline wins, probably for the better, because it would be a little bit too predictable if they lost this. This is one I'm sort of glad that I got wrong. I think the Bloodline needed to win this in hindsight. And the main event, which I still think should not have been the main event, despite the name value of Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar. This was somewhat shorter than I thought that it would be. It wasn't as quick as like the Theory match earlier, but it came off as anticlimactic to me. I felt like the finish was rushed. Maybe it was. Maybe they ran out of time with the Bad Bunny match and Damian Priest match. I don't know the exact time that went, but it was a very long matchup. Optically, this match looked cool, especially with like Brock hitting the exposed turnbuckle, getting busted open, kind of spilling blood all over the place, and getting the blood smeared all over him. Corey Graves, I think, calling him the big game hunter. That was fitting. I don't know. It felt weird. It wasn't necessarily a perfect victory for Cody. He ended up using Brock's body weight to counter the Kimura lock and set him up for the pin. Remember, I predicted this to be either a DQ or a double DQ or a double count out of some sorts, but Cody winning, I guess he needed this, but I think they could have also really utilized him not winning, also not losing, but not coming out victorious in this matchup. I feel like they could have utilized that in the story a little better than him outright winning a match like this. I also thought that maybe this was going to be sort of a unfinished business where this leads to both of them competing in the World Heavyweight title tournament and possibly facing each other for the title in the end of the tournament. But this, I guess, air quotes, completes Cody's story or helps his story continue, or I don't know. But the way this match ended just didn't really sit right with me. It felt a little, like I said, anticlimactic, and it felt almost hollow and empty in a way. I wasn't a big fan of it. Then Cody kind of busting ass out of there and leaving quickly, and I really think this should have been further down the card. Not like opening, but maybe in place of Bad Bunny, maybe they could have traded spots. Just a strange, quick, sort of hollow way to end what was otherwise a high energy, loud, and fun. Just a really entertaining show. Also, I wrote down in my notes, this is the first time I think I realized Brock Lesnar has no calves at all. I've never noticed that before. I've completely missed that. Brock Lesnar could eat me for breakfast, but I'm sorry. Has he always had no calves? Like, no calves at all? Maybe it's just sort of an illusion based on how upper body heavy the guy is and how fucking beastly he is on the top. But I don't know why this was the first time I noticed, but Brock Lesnar has like zero calf muscle. Shocking to me. It really threw me for a loop, and I couldn't help but be a little distracted by that. I've never noticed that before. Just again, not a big fan of the way this event ended. Everything else was fun and great. I had a great time watching this, but this last match just it felt misplaced and a little rushed, maybe. But that was Backlash. This crowd, it's been a long time since I've seen a crowd that hot live on either televised or on a premium live event. Just added to the atmosphere, it added to the aesthetics, it added to the show. When you get a hot crowd like that, it makes the show even better. Even if you're just watching at home, it elevates the show to another echelon, and we've seen that before on like post WrestleMania Raws, especially when they're overseas, when they did that one in the UK. It elevates the show. You almost want them to I want WWE to sign this crowd to a contract and take them wherever they go and just have this crowd be the crowd that they have for every event that they do, that they televise or do a premium live event. Great crowd, added to the show, added to the moments, made it more exciting. Again, hot the entire night, a hot crowd the entire night, but after the Bad Bunny and Damian Priest match, they seemed slightly deflated. Not like completely dead, but the high energy level just came down a noticeable notch. Didn't take away from the rest of the show really, but it was noticeable. They were peaking at a high level the entire first half of the show and throughout the Bad Bunny and Damian Priest match. But right after that, you could tell during the Bloodline and Zayn Owens Riddle match that they weren't as up as they had been. And I think they just spent all of their energy celebrating Bad Bunny winning, which is why I think it should have been the main event. I don't know how you feel, but that would have been the absolute perfect way to end the show. But either way, that was Backlash. Fun show. I had a great time watching it. Again, 5 out of 7 prediction-wise. I cannot complain. Some other stuff is we have just earlier today had the participants in the Heavyweight Championship tournament announced. And it's a little surprising. I wanted to talk about that before I get going here. There are 12 competitors in this tournament. From Raw, we have Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, The Miz, Cody Rhodes, and Shinsuke. And on SmackDown, we have Edge, AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory, Rey Mysterio, and Sheamus. Quickly want to point out, no Gunther, no Roman Reigns. I think that was somewhat expected. No Solo Sikoa. No Bronson Reed. No Drew McIntyre. No LA Knight. No Brock Lesnar, which really shocked me. No Omos, among a few others. Brock Lesnar missing from this tournament is what surprises me the most. I really thought he was going to be involved with it somehow. I thought this would be his way to get involved in a major championship picture while also adhering to the stipulation that he cannot face Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship any longer while he is still champion. Questions within the participants. I'm Why is The Miz in this? I know you can kind of put him anywhere and he'll do a good job, but why The Miz? I get Rollins, I get Balor, I get Priest. Cody, obviously. Shinsuke makes sense. Edge, yeah, I guess. AJ Styles makes sense. Lashley, I think, besides Cody, makes the most sense of all 12 of these guys. Austin Theory doesn't make sense to me. Look, Austin Theory is great, but he has the United States Championship right now. If Theory is in this, why not Gunther? Because they're both current champions. They're both holding secondary titles in the U.S. Championship and IC title. But Gunther not in the heavyweight championship tournament just is wrong to me. So Theory, instead of Theory, you could have had like LA Knight, who desperately needs something to do. Mysterio makes sense. Sheamus, I guess, kind of makes sense. This tournament's going to be 2 triple threat matches per show. 2 triple threat matches on Raw, 2 triple threat matches on SmackDown. The winner of those will face each other, and the winner of those will be the final 2 to face each other at Night of Champions. I don't know. Some of this tournament doesn't make sense to me. I think I'm going to have to go with my favorites being Cody and Lashley. I think the finals will be Cody and Lashley facing each other. I think from the Raw side, it'll be Cody and Rollins winning their respective triple threat matches to face each other. Cody will beat Rollins to move on to Night of Champions. And as far as SmackDown goes, I think we'll get Lashley winning his triple threat and Theory winning his triple threat, and Lashley beating Theory to move on to face Cody at Night of Champions. I mean, while I'm a little underwhelmed by some of the participants and lack of participants, that'll be exciting. It'll be fun to watch. Besides that, we're on the road to Night of Champions now, and we got a lot to look forward to and talk about in the near future. So that's going to do it for this episode. Just wanted to do a quick post-Backlash reaction and analysis. Talk a little bit about the heavyweight tournament that is impending. But we'll get into the standard shows next time and react and analyze accordingly after those have come and gone. So until then, this has been Facebuster Wrestling Podcast. Once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Take care.